Here's my family. My name is Sarah Ramsey, and today I will be speaking to inform my audience of the stigma surrounding mental health in our society today. In today's world, there is a stigma surrounding mental illness that has a negative effect on those that have been diagnosed with mental illness and how they handle these illnesses. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, in 2018, 47.6 million people experienced mental illness. This is a huge number and most likely affects someone that you know or maybe even yourself. With numbers being this high, it would be easy to think that mental illness is something that is acknowledged and accepted in light. But today's society has formed a stigma that makes it difficult to speak on mental health and the mental illnesses that many face today. A reported 47.6 million people experienced mental illness in 2018. This is equivalent to 1 in 5 people. This means at least 1, if not more people in this room have experienced or are dealing with mental illness. This could be a family member, a friend, the stranger that you passed on the way to class, or yourself. The best way to end this stigma is to make sure that people are informed, like the speech that I'm giving today. It is important to be aware of this stigma and the weight that it carries for many people. In today's world, there is a stigma surrounding mental illness that has a negative effect on those and the health of many. I have done extensive research, took classes on the topic, and worked with individuals that have had mental illnesses and experienced the stigma around them. Because of these experiences, I am aware of these stigmas and the effect that they have on mental illnesses. I also have first-hand experience with mental illnesses and have personally experienced this stigma. To be fully aware of mental illness, I believe that you have to fully understand it, whether that be through experience, research, classes, or just being open-minded enough to understand what somebody else may be dealing with. Before I was quite old enough to be considered a teenager, I experienced an event that helped to lay out my mental health for the years to come. This event changed everything for me and helped to lay out the way that I functioned in my mental health. I was later diagnosed with major depressive disorder and PTSD anxiety. When I first noticed the changes in my mental health, I almost felt ashamed to ask anyone what it meant or to even explain to my doctor what was going on. This feeling of being ashamed could have led or be attributed to the fact that I was picked on growing up, or that I always heard someone joking about seeing a crazy doctor or a psychiatrist, or that it was funny to have to take medicine to feel okay. Before I even knew what a stigma was, I was experiencing it. As I became older and started to grow, I started to see this stigma more. Conversations on mental health were hushed in public, and it was never okay to take a sick day from school or work because of mental health, but it was openly accepted if you were sick to your stomach or had the flu. I know this stigma is real because of my personal experiences and for the things that I have heard going on throughout my life as I grow up. The overall feeling of lower self-esteem can be attributed to this stigma. Personal experiences may vary with everyone, but many people experience the same feeling. Research also shows us the proof of the stigma around mental health and how nobody is alone when feeling this way. When someone views you in a negative way because of a distinguishable characteristic or personality trait, this is a stigma. A lot of people view those with mental health as weak or as someone that can't do anything on their own. A stigma can lead to discrimination from others or yourself. Both can be detrimental to good mental health and can lead to issues for those with mental illnesses. This stigma that some receive for their mental illnesses can lead people to be reluctant to seek treatment or give them the belief that they'll never be able to succeed on their own. This stigma can also lead someone to have an overall negative outlook on their life. Social stigma is discrimination that comes from a person's environment, school, work, peers, friends. And the Mayo Clinic also says that this stigma is most popular among schools, churches, and work environments. Along with the stigma from the public, there is something called self-stigma, and it is the belief that you are weak or less because of an illness, in this case, a mental illness. This type of stigma is what often leads people to being reluctant to seek treatment or continue what they are going through. This stigma also leads to the self-stigma that people are not as open to telling someone about their experiences. Mentalhealth.org states that 1 in 4 people will experience a mental illness at some point in their life. Society has stereotyped mental illness and uses media as an outlet for it. The media often displays people with mental health problems in association with violence, crime, being disabled, and the inability to lead a normal life. The type of input that the media has on the society makes this stigma worse because it associates mental health with all of these negative things. We have various forms of proof that the stigma surrounding mental health is real and not just something that is made up. Many people may think that this stigma is small or that it isn't a very big deal to feel ashamed or to feel embarrassed, but to someone with mental health or mental illness, it can be detrimental, and it can be the leading factor in causing them from leading a healthy life. This stigma makes mental illness worse because of the effect that it has on someone's mental health. The National Alliance on Mental Illness states that 1 in 5 Americans dealing with mental illness will face the stigma that comes along with it at some point in their lives. The stigma that comes from our society harms the individual and makes them hesitant or prevents them from seeking help. It also encourages isolation, shame, and confuses feeling bad with the fact of actually being bad. Someone that has untreated mental illness can lead to deterioration Someone who refuses to seek help because of the stigma or from the feeling of being embarrassed can lead to the deterioration of someone's mental health due to them not being able to seek the help that they need. The National Alliance of Mental Illness reports that 46% of people who committed suicide had a known mental illness. This number doesn't account for those who hadn't been clinically diagnosed with mental illness, and suicide is just one example of something that can happen to someone who doesn't take control of their mental health. The stigma that sometimes we create by ourselves and that comes from our society is toxic to mental health because it creates an environment of shame and silence for the person experiencing it and not allowing them to not be able to reach out to others and to get help. In this speech, I have given the personal background of myself to be able to connect with my audience. I have outlined the mental illness and what comes with the fact of having mental illness and how the stigma in today's world affects it. And I have also explained how a stigma affects the person with mental illness and how it affects not only their mental health but their physical health. In today's world, there is a stigma surrounding mental illness that has a negative effect on those with mental illness and the mental health of many. In our society, there is a large stigma surrounding mental health that affects those with mental illnesses. While the effects of this stigma are harmful to those experiencing it, there's ways that we can improve it. I believe being informed is the best way to overcome something. Know your facts, but also be aware that we are all human beings with feelings that we have to deal with, and this starts with being informed.